Professional Development Bite, presented by Rebekah, Jason, Josh, and Kalia. Professional Development Bite, presented by Rebekah, Jason, Josh, and Kalia.
In this day and age of technology advances, ICT has become a prevalent tool in education systems to alleviate learning. There is a widespread support and acceptance of new and evolved digital technology which now pervades schools and universities, especially in the delivery of online learning. Technology is used in our everyday lives and has been linked to increased motivation and achievements towards learning and helping learners become digitally literate. However, this cannot be achieved without first a digitally literate teacher. Therefore, the learning outcome of this presentation is to lead and support fellow colleagues in the selection and use of effective ICT teaching strategies that will expand on learning opportunities and content knowledge of all students, taken from the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers. Our two ICT tools for enhancing online English curriculum are blogging and film, which are emerging ICT tools used in conjunction with English classrooms and English as a foreign language. We have connected film to two other forms of interactive ICT to further enhance student learning. Some important questions to think about before we start are how technology could and should be used and why. How can we as educators improve and overcome the asynchronous nature of online learning? And what are the risk and safety measures? Take a moment to think of why these are so important to consider and if they are answered by the end of this presentation.
In accordance with the Professional Development BYTE, I have developed a dual ICT tool to expand the curriculum learning opportunities for students catered to the English curriculum. For our BYTE, we have collectively decided to pinpoint our research on Year 10 English, as it allows liberty for an expressive approach to education, a freedom that seniors are unable to experience due to the emphasis on Bloom's taxonomy. The Year 10 Australian Curriculum English emphasizes learning from a variety of media texts for enjoyment, developing critical understanding of contemporary media, and the difference between media texts. Thus, to cater towards enjoyable multimedia, I have developed a dual ICT task involving film analysis and an interactive questionnaire platform. Film is the most influential media in modern society, especially prevalent in younger generations. It is a tool capable of presenting the reality of historical and cultural material, conveying an emotional experience among the audience. The integration of film into the curriculum will undoubtedly allow for students to appreciate films for different purposes, thereby considering differentiating aspects of their surroundings to achieve educational goals. Film can be considered an alternate learning experience from the standardized rote learning embedded in the curriculum. Studies have concluded that learners' cognitive styles are greatly inclined towards an image-oriented approach, with verbal-oriented film resources that differ from traditional lecture-based classrooms. It provides opportunity for active learning and participation in classroom discussion. Shakespearean plays have become an integral assessment piece in the Australian general syllabus, with students being assessed on Shakespearean works from middle to senior years. From personal experience, teachers often incorporate film into Shakespeare classes to alternate from the standardized script readings. Oftentimes, however, the films are dated works that can bore the students. Thus, I have conceptualized an ICT film activity that heavily anticipates on healthy teacher-student relations. Studies have significantly associated students' social functioning, behavioral problems, engagement in learning activities, and academic achievement to their relationship with their educator. Teachers who are more sensitive and caring can serve as a secure base in which children can freely explore the school environment and become engaged in learning activities. Thereby, a favorable teacher-student relationship is critical to stimulate learning behavior and support for children to deal with demands in the school context. A creative way this can function in accompaniment with film is by having the cohort classroom teachers enact Shakespeare plays in an exciting, parody-like manner. The teachers would fundamentally act out all the major parts of the plays, with special attention to demonstrating the hidden themes often represented within Shakespearean plays. Thus, by incorporating teachers who are well received by the student population, students will most likely be more engaged in the film presentation, absorbing knowledge at an incredible rate. This can further be enhanced by a succeeding questionnaire activity that embraces collaborative learning. A successful ICT tool integrated into many classes is Kahoot, an online quizzing program in which students can compete either independently or in a group setting. Kahoot quizzes are purposeful in increasing participation during a classroom, as well as functioning as a formative assessment. Furthermore, they are idealized as tools to test the baseline of students' comprehension, as well as reinforcing student connections and patterns of the concepts learned. By displaying the highest scores on the board, Kahoot can increase engagement through competition, providing an exciting method of formative assessment. The peer learning approach of Kahoot can be further enhanced within an experimental learning framework, pairing advanced students and novice students to work together on a given task. In other words, a key process in Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Within the ZPD is a partnership between the more knowledgeable other, a person who has a higher level of knowledge than the learner, and thus can assist them during their learning process. In comparison with traditional instruction, peer learning often results in a more relaxed and open learning environment, an atmosphere that coexists within the ICT activity of Kahoot. To evaluate the effectiveness of the Kahoot, I have developed one in order for us to use. On the screen, you'll be able to type in the URL and code and join in on the fun. The questions will be tailored to the presentation, and of course, you may work in groups as well. Despite the interactive and fun nature of the activities, it is important to still be critical of potential setbacks. The film aspect is an example of passive learning, whereas the Kahoot is active learning, thus different precautions must be considered. The film is considered as part of the Banking of Education module, emphasizing a transfer of knowledge from educator to student, a theory stemming from passive learning. Although passive learning ensures rapid information learning and retention, it contains deficiencies such as long-term retention and students not being able to be actively engaged. This then leads to students drifting asleep or talking amongst themselves. Thus, it is important to engage students in the film, monitoring their status and their attention. The Kahoot, however, is an avid example of active learning, in which they oversee their own education, facilitating small group discussions and short response answering. However, there are of course technological issues to be wary of. Schools might be out of wireless catchment zones, students may not be technologically literate, or have access to their own devices. Thus, it is important that the Kahoot is not a large contribution of the lesson, with alternate learning plans, including a multi-choice answer sheet, are to be considered.
To further develop the strategy of utilizing film as a teaching tool, we must also consider its effectiveness in combination with additional forms of ICT. Moreover, it is imperative that as teachers we are aware of how to approach ICT in education responsibly for the safety and skill development of our students. Goldberg addresses the societal stigma that surrounds the use of film in English classroom, highlighting its common reference as lazy teaching or lacking the qualities of written literature. Yet throughout their research and correspondence with English teachers, it is evident when utilized with a purpose, it can elicit higher order thinking. Reconfiguring our view of film in the English classroom to be seen as an effective tool can and will revolutionize the quality and level of engagement in students' education. To expand students' literacy skills in high order reasoning and intellectual reference, the QCAA Year 10 curriculum outlines that to provoke such development, films must be employed as one of the multimodal literary texts. Goldberg stresses the importance of employing further technology during active film viewing that allows for discussion and clarification. Combining platforms of active or interactive ICT enables an added level of dialogue and participation rather than merely putting a film on for students to watch and take notes. Stop and consider some forms of additional ICT platforms to link with film that may be effective to use in your classroom that will ensure students are critically engaged and thinking. Express your ideas on the link of the Padlet or using the QR code. Barry Ryan, in his study of the beneficial implications of Neopod, highlights the importance of interactive teaching as an extension of a constructivist and active approach. Interactive learning between student and teacher reflects a guided construction approach, whereas peer interaction works as a form of co-construction. The ICT tool Neopod allows for greater dialogic interaction compared to traditional forms of discussion and class interaction. Ryan emphasizes that by using Neopod, there was a trend in students' learning responsibility, highlighting that it enhanced attention, overall engagement, and students' comfortability with participation. How would this look in the classroom? Approaching an example for this, I have considered the Year 10 level curriculum focusing on the topic of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. As stated previously, Shakespearean texts are not easily welcomed by all students, and to ensure the engagement of most pupils, it is useful to employ ICT platforms such as Neopod alongside films. Neopod allows us as teachers to tailor personalized, interactive lessons that involve videos, gamification, and activities. Using film clips or screen grabs, I can allow students to watch parts of a film and then pause to either answer an open-ended question, participate in a poll, or use mini-games to elicit thinking, whilst collaboratively engaging the class by sharing students' answers and working through them. In my example shown on screen, I have placed a short excerpt from the 1996 Romeo and Juliet film, and at the end of the clip, I have placed an open-ended question that asks students to consider its correlation to the play script read previously and identify the characters. I then can select students' answers that come to me privately to share on the screen for the class to start a discussion. This is a screen grab of what comes up on every student's screen once a teacher has shared an individual student's answer. Okay, to continue. This demonstrates the learning theory approach that Ryan outlines of intertwining active, constructive, and interactive learning by first allowing the students to engage with critical thinking of the learning material, then using directive questions they can then produce an explanation of what they have watched, and finally, participating in class discussion following the ideas from the material and pupils' respective answers. Now we must pose the question, how can we practice responsible ICT use as teachers alongside our students? ICT responsibility is the awareness of privacy and copyright issues, ethical issues, and the ability to evaluate digital information. In the Padlet link below, outline how you would practice ICT responsibility in your class. Consider the use of film and interactive platforms that have been discussed. What does ICT responsibility look like in each context? Firstly, privacy must be considered by ensuring that we are aware that all participants consented to being filmed. Secondly, copyright applies to all forms of media and text sources as teachers. We must ensure we have the correct licensing before using the sources in our lessons. Finally, it is imperative that we critically interrogate and consider the content of films and other sources to ensure they are appropriate and helpful for students before showing them. Why is it important for teachers to use ICT responsibly? Because we are role models. As teachers, our use of ICT influences students, so by directing them to act responsibly, we can ensure our students are developing to receive, participate, and act correctly with ICT and media, alongside improving their confidence with these skills and ensuring their safety. Further emphasizing why Neopod is an invaluable ICT tool, as it allows teachers to regulate the content shown, such as film, and ensure that students' responses are appropriate before sharing with the class.
The next ICT strategy, which will expand curriculum learning opportunities for students in the English classroom, is blogging. But first, what is a blog? A blog is a website used for online discussion themed around certain topics and usually occurs in reverse chronological order. Like an online journal, bloggers can convey their opinions at any time and any place through a combination of texts, videos, images, links, and audio, and can encourage online discussion by allowing selected others to comment on their blog. With this definition in mind, I encourage you all now to take a moment to discuss with your peers how you might incorporate blogging into a classroom of your teaching area. For the English classroom, we propose incorporating blogging via the teacher creating a post relevant to Shakespeare. Perhaps the post is a task, a question, or a reflection, and having students respond to this post and forming discussions with their peers. But why do we even need blogging in the English classroom anyway? Firstly, blogging in education is heavily supported by the constructivist approach. Rather than just depositing knowledge onto students, blogging involves the collaboration of students and/or teachers to develop ideas from their prior knowledge, which helps students denote meaning to class content, making it more likely for students to store new content in their long-term memory. These peer discussions and collaborations are especially important for extracting meaning from Shakespearean texts, given the complexity of his texts and the iambic pentameter writing style he uses. Blogging also allows students to use the English language in different contexts to voice their opinions. It helps create a social learning environment, and it allows students to develop new skills using their prior knowledge. Secondly, blogging is highly effective for keeping students engaged in class. In the online world, the English language is often compromised for abbreviated language, acronyms, and emojis. In fact, I encourage you to stop for a moment and think about all the English rules you break when communicating online. Such informality is crucial for maintaining students' engagement since it allows them to communicate in a way that most enjoy and are familiar with. It also modernizes the classroom and reduces the stress of academic writing. Such informality may seem like a hindrance to students' English and literacy skills, but the Australian curriculum requires students to be able to modify language for different purposes in a range of contexts. Additionally, a study by Freeman, Higgins, and Horney 2016 found that reducing the formality of writing aided students in extracting meaning from dense and abstract texts. Thus, the informality of blogging would be crucial in covering Shakespeare, given how complex and abstract his writing was. Finally, the specific learning aims of blogging run parallel to those listed on the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority. That is, students will learn to read, view, write, create, and reflect on complex multimodal texts across a range of contexts with fluency and purpose. The activity will also allow them to develop ideas of the English language through online interactions with their peers, as well as critically evaluate and analyze the perspective of their peers. Okay, but where's the evidence that blogging is effective for students' English learning? Studies by Castaneda 2011, Block 2007, and Gallagher 2010 found that using blogs for discussions in English improves students' grammar, essay and paragraph structures, academic writing, ability to revise written work, give and receive feedback, and ability to collaborate with their peers. Additionally, a study by Godwin-Jones 2006 found that blogging in English encourages peer feedback, the formation of opinions and ideas, promotes collaboration with projects and debates, and helps students develop persuasive and argumentative skills. Another study by Lee 2010 found that blogging positively impacted students' writing fluency and accuracy, peer feedback, motivation, compositional writing skills, and facilitates positive social interactions between teachers and students. Incorporating ICT into the classroom is a gateway to the dangers of the online world. So how can we, as future educators, introduce blogging into the classroom responsibly, safely, and ethically? Before we answer that, teachers first need to be familiar with the potential risks and ethical implications associated with blogging. I encourage you all now to stop for a moment and list as many potential risks you think might arise from blogging. So, the online risks and ethical considerations associated with blogging includes the sharing of inappropriate information, data, and images, how to protect students' identities and information, how to protect students from inappropriate comments and content, who can access the blogs, the owner of the device students are using, and whether parents and students give informed consent to using these devices in class. With these in mind, teachers need to set rules for students during blogging activities, like only using first names or fake names, by keeping their location private online, ensuring the privacy settings of their blogs are secure, being clear on what students can and cannot post, the language they can use, and the potential consequences listed in the school policy if students breach these.
As mentioned, blogging has so many benefits for the English classroom to improve online learning for individuals. Although, does this help with other criteria of English? Well, little evidence supports that blogging is linked to improvement to testing and speaking aspects. While it may develop skills like brainstorming, articulation, and conceptualization, it has no effect on fluency, pronunciation, accuracy, and language complexity. With this increased use of technology in the education systems, it has become less apparent the issues that digital education has on learning. Using digital text should ensure the authentic or real-life application of the English curriculum. However, blogging and chat rooms, according to Honan 2018, sometimes removes the authentic reality and creativity involved. For example, the students could be sitting right next to each other while creating their online reality, negating the purpose of using online chats and blogs. In contrast, Shin 2015 posits that blogs offer a variety of real-world communication experiences and teaching possibilities in language education, allowing students to undergo writing practices for real audiences with ease as the digital media-based communication increases every day. Consequently, the challenge of e-safety is presented. As teachers, choosing these digital software and tools must ensure the safety of the students. Not only is there that possibility of getting exposed to harmful information, there is the problem of privacy violations. Dangerous situations like encounters with strangers on the internet, access to inappropriate materials, or social implications like posting personal information may arise. Thus, teachers must be especially vigilant of these risks. In addition, the idea that digital technology, such as blogs, has the ability to create spaces for people to act outside of their non-digital, real-life existences puts forth another problem. Since they perceive that this new digital space is separate and far from reality, some people only concern themselves with the pleasurable aspects of technology than deal with the messiness of reality, while others may hide behind the screen with unfiltered malicious identities and no thought of punishment. Students may not all have access to technology at home, depending on their socioeconomic status. This poses another potential issue regarding education technology, especially when students with low socioeconomic background already fall short on their academic achievements compared to students who are not of low socioeconomic status. Without impacting this group of students means higher costs of resources for teachers to provide. Al-Khalaf and Al-Muteri, 2015, found that educators' perceptions of using blogging were mostly positive. However, teachers have little rewards and incentives to use technology due to the lack of time to prepare lessons and having to supply their own resources like laptops and iPads. Not only that, students' lack of digital literacy skills can cause challenges in the integrity of blogging. Without digital literacy skills, the difficulty of locating and evaluating information on the internet can lead them to copy or use incorrect information, which might result in copyright issues or plagiarism. Further, since access to quality information databases like e-libraries is not available, while unreliable information sources like Wikipedia are more easily accessible, students with lack of critical thinking could simply copy and paste that information off the internet.
The utilization of ICT strategies is important in the 21st century education. ICT is ever evolving as it extends beyond the traditional forms of learning and teaching. In correlation with the English curriculum, we have explained how our design strategies of using two diverse ICT tools such as film and blogging can enhance students' learning. Firstly, we focused on film combined with either Kahoot or Nearpod to participate students in interactive and creative learning. Secondly, we concentrated on blogging as a constructed learning approach for students. With the consideration of the intended student learning outcomes, our two strategies for using ICT in the classroom were designed to enhance students' engagement, literacy, discussions, and achievements. We also highlighted the importance of practicing ethical, responsible, and safe use of ICT in the classroom, because as teachers, we are role models in the classroom. Students learn from our ICT skills. To conclude, in the pad that linked below, explain what strategy you are most likely to employ in your classroom and describe why.